Greetings, Earthlings. With Tarkir being the best plane of all time, and I will fight you in the parking lot of a Walmart if you try to argue me, I figured it was time to revisit one of my favorite decks that actually has a pretty high win rate in my playgroup. This commander barely even has 200 decks on EDH Rec, last time I checked anyway, but that's what makes playing this deck all the more fun. Tools and fools, let me introduce you to the OG of Icy Dragon Nips, wibyti Soul of Winter. For a whopping 5, a white and a blue, we got a 5/6 dragon with flying and vigilance, and the ability where, whenever a dragon you control attacks, you get to tap down an opponent's creature and it doesn't untap on their next untap step. Pretty neat strategy for a dragon, right? Let's jump in. To start, let's preface this by saying that this is obviously not your run-of-the-mill dragon strategy, because most of them want to stomp on the board and just erase everything, but not Frozone here. He just wants to freeze you in place while he and his homies fly around without a care. The fact that we're in Azorius means that ramp isn't really our friend, so for that reason, and the fact that we have such an expensive commander, we're running 38 lands and 11 pieces of ramp. There's your obvious Sol Ring bullshit, but some notable ones are Kefnet's Monument to keep up the tapping nonsense, Dragon's Hoard for extra card draw, and Lapis Orbit Dragonkind. And if our boy was any cheaper, I'd have a hard time justifying Seal the Guild Pact, but alas. When I first built this deck, the amount of Azorius dragons were just pitiful. There were the original Tarkir dragons, which weren't all that great and very limited, and ones that disappeared if you looked at them funny. The D&D sets really helped out with things though, with big dudes like Icing Death Frost Tyrant, Imrith Desert Doom, and Renari Merchant of Marvels. Don't get me wrong though, OG Tarkir did have some good dragons for this, with Ward Scale Dragon, Dragonlord Ojutai, and Sunscorch Regent. There are also some other big beefy sky lizards that could turn a game on its head. Cards like Icefall Regent keeps a creature tapped down for as long as he stays out, so if you got a problematic Voltron commander, bye-bye. And Scaled Lord Reckoner is just a brutal answer to spot removal. Steel Hellkite can also do some damage, especially considering it can wipe tokens for 0. Now, because so many of these guys cost an additional boatload to cast, there's some additional ways to reduce costs on top of the aforementioned artifacts. Dudes like Warden of Evocile and Watcher of Spheres can definitely help you ramp up faster at that rate. One can argue, though, that it isn't the strongest strategy to just tap down creatures, but you'd be surprised at how many decks want creatures to die or have attacks triggers or stuff of the sort, and you could deny all of that by basically detaining your opponent's fields. So yeah, I'd say in those cases it's pretty powerful. Now, the fact that we're in this color identity means that card draw should never be a problem. The aforementioned Dragon's Hoard is helpful, but one of my favorite cards in this deck is Verity Circle. A lot of newer cards have once per turn limitations, but this enchantment couldn't care less. There's also Borrowing 100,000 Arrows, which there's constantly creatures being tapped in the game, whether it's you doing it or not, so that's usually a great value engine for 3 mana. Other support cards that aren't dragons but help the cause are ones like Charade of Numbing Depths, Dragonologist, Dragon's Disciple, and an honorary dragon with Unsettled Mariner. I had the idea to run Hilda at one point, but I'm not crazy on paying extra to use her abilities, especially when I'm paying so much to cast dragons to begin with. I do run her Crown though, that one's pretty helpful. But with casting all these big dragons, it can sometimes leave the mana pool dried up, but when you get to a certain point in the game, you can leave up all that mana for said responses like Dispersal Shield or Chain Stasis. Now, that's not to say we run no removal at all. I don't run your typical spot removal because that's boring, but Split Up and Don't Move can be so ridiculous to pull off. Don't Move, especially, is extra ignorant because if you tap down someone's freshly played creatures the turn after this is cast, that's just rubbing salt in the wound. There's definitely, it's definitely one of these decks that could be thwarted if people draw and hold up responses and removal, but in modern EDH where everything is so fast and things are cheaper, I almost prefer the solo play sometimes because by the time you hit the field, everyone's already trying to deal with each other's board states and burning interactions on lesser creatures. And because most of your creatures are too big to kill with burn spells, not to mention Unsettled Mariner giving ward and Dragonologist giving outright hexproof, it's going to be hard to deal with your field once things start swinging. And the fact that Ojutai himself has vigilance and your entire field has flying means that unless you're against another dragon deck, you're just going to run roughshod over a lot of battlefields. Now, I was also considering Mox Jasper, but by the time it's even useful, you've already dropped at least 3 pieces of ramp and have Ojutai on board, so I'm already looking at 9 to 10 mana. I think it's a card that is overhyped because you can literally only use it once a dragon's on board, which is great if you get Unsettled Mariner or, say, Dragon Turtle, but those are niche cases that won't always happen. I'm sure there's other dragon cards that I'm missing, especially in the new Tarkir one, but, I'm considering dudes like the Ancient Dragons and Owl of the Dawn Sky, but I'm not made of money. But I do run Yosei and Keiga, though, because they are really good. But, yeah. Let me know what you think and what other considerations I could have for a deck like this. The fact that there's a good amount of card draw can circumvent the potential mana flooding that comes with running almost 40 lands at 11 mana rocks, so that is helpful. Normally, I'm not a fan of so much rampant decks because I want to focus more on the theme, but part of this theme is being able to ramp in a color that normally isn't good for it. But, aside from all that, join the Discord, give me some more shit to talk about, check out my music, links in the description, wrap that like, tap that subscribe. Peace.